History is always in motion. The war with the zebras had been brutal. Both sides had built up their technology and forces to fight the other. The ponies built up their military strength, creating mega spells that gave them a perceived edge in the war, only to lose it when traitors gave the secret of mega spells to the zebras, making the war even more dire for both sides. But as things in Equestria as a whole began to deteriorate, life on a small island off the northern coast continued as it had for years. The fishing community had little interest in the war, except for when Stable Tech came to construct Stable 109 on the island. The concern that the war with the zebras would get to the point of a mega spell exchange grew, but the island was far enough away from the mainland that they believed that they would have nothing to worry about. But come the mega spells did. Equestria was burned in a wave of balefire and necromancy, and it spread across the land, turning the vibrant world into a wasteland. That small island avoided the fire, at least at first. After years, the fallout from the megaspells blew onto the island, and a new and deadly threat was created from it. A radioactive fog formed on the island, and the survivors had to either fight it back or perish in the deadly fog. But it wasn't over yet. The radiation created true monsters that came to plague the inhabitants of this island. Even now, the fog is looming on the last place that is inhabitable, the town of Lost Cove. For 180 years, they have had no contact with the outside world of the wasteland. That is about to change. It had been so long since any pony had dared to fly this far away from the mainland of Equestria and the central authority of the Grand Pegasus Enclave. My unit had been sent to investigate the old pre-war community on Mount Pleasant Island, which no pony had tried to make contact with since the megaspells fell so many years ago. "Lieutenant Brightfeather, are you ready?" my CO, Captain Hawk, asked. "Yes, sir, I'm ready," I said, trying not to look nervous. This was my first mission for the Enclave. I had only recently been promoted and assigned to this unit. Admittedly, this was hardly more than a glorified recon mission to get intel for Command and the Senate. I just had to follow orders and do it. I don't know if any pony will ever read this, but I want ponies to know what happened in Lost Cove. There are a lot of stories to be told. I'm hoping that my story will give a perspective on what has been happening in the world. "Good," Hawk said with a nod. Our vertibuck was coming up on the island now. We were to find a spot to land and try to find out what had happened to the island. If it was abandoned, it was going to be considered for a new base for the Enclave. I know every pony is disappointed that our first mission as a unit is recon, but this is important for our mission to reclaim the surface. The Enclave will prevail here. Glory to the Enclave! "Glory to the Enclave," we said in unison. As the vertibuck starts to descend towards the ground far beneath us, it suddenly started to shake. We held on tight. What in Tartarus was going on out there? There was a sudden drop as the vertibuck started to spiral towards the ground. "Crash positions! Crash positions!" Hawk yelled out as we all braced ourselves for the coming crash. There was a jolt as we impacted, and I blacked out. "Lieutenant, get up!" the sound of one of the privates said as I was shaken into consciousness. I'm awake, I said, looking up. I was still in the vertibuck, strapped in. I noticed that the other seats were empty. "Where's every pony else?" "Captain Hawk went out to secure the perimeter," the private said. "Breeze and Strike went with him, but there's no sign of any pony else." My eyes went wide at that. We had been a unit of 10 and half of us were missing. My eyesight started to come back to me as I saw that something had ripped a hole in the side of the vertibuck. At first I thought it was caused by the crash, then I realized that there were marks, as if some great beast had torn into the side of it. "What in Tartarus?" I started to say, and then we heard screams from outside. I unstrapped myself and got to my hooves, rushing out to find Hawk and one of the other ponies firing at something. The fog partially obscured it, but it didn't look like a pony. It looked unnatural and terrifying. I tried to shoot at it, but my shots just bounced off the monster's armored back. "Both of you, fly!" Hawk shouted to us. We didn't need any further prompting. We flapped our wings and took off, trying to escape the battle. I hated having to leave the captain behind, but we didn't have a choice at this point. We kept flying into the fog, staying close, but we had to weave in and out of the trees. I suddenly realized that the private wasn't beside me anymore. I couldn't think on it. I mourned them later as I kept flying. That's when something reached out of the fog and pulled me down, and my world went black again. Mount Pleasant Island, a name that doesn't exactly inspire fear, but over 180 years has become a haven for the most terrifying creatures that Equestria had ever seen. This isn't where my story ended. No, indeed, this is just the beginning. The mysteries of the island are vast and numerous, and I had just begun my journey into this unknown world. Life on this island was more than just a walk in the park. There are mysteries that need to be uncovered, and shadows from the old world that still linger. After all, to survive in Equestria after the Megaspell fell is to wage war, and war never changes.